So, like, let's just jump into this here. Now that we're here, we got through our scarves. We're going to talk about four major topics today. We're going to talk about this calendar change that keeps getting teased and is inching closer to being accepted. We're going to talk about the Apple TV deal. We're going to talk about the new competition format, and we're going to talk about some sponsorship growth. But I do want to start, I think, with the calendar change first because it came out that Don Garber teased it. We thought that he was going to drop the news, but he just was teasing that they were talking about it. But he used the phrase that he believes that alignment with the rest of the soccer world in terms of the calendar makes sense. So it seems the league is moving in that direction. There was a rumor that 27 out of 30 teams have agreed to make this move. So they're working on the details. We've talked about this for quite a while, as they were teasing this a couple months ago. So we've shared our thoughts. But John, I want to get your thoughts because you seem pretty. You've got a really strong opinion on this, which is what we love on this show because I get strong opinions, our guests have strong opinions, and Connor's a fence straddler. So I want to hear some more strong opinions. What do you
Hey,
think
that's
about
not
the?
fair.
But it's true. What do you think about the change?
I've definitely got strong opinions. I think it's 100% the right thing to do. They should have done it years ago. I personally think this will do more for accelerating the league forward than having Lionel Messi here will.
Ooh.
Mainly because Lionel Messi is going to eventually retire. Yes, he's bringing eyes now, but we have to think what comes after him, what other teams can bring in, and a lot of it for me is to do with the fact that the way that we run our league right now is all backwards. So we're having to overpay for guys in the winter and we're losing guys in the summer. And if you ask all the GMs, I know they did a Sportico study. I can't remember when it was, I think like a year ago. And a lot of them saying, we really need to fix this because we're getting screwed. Like you said, Andrew, 27 of the 30 owners rumored to do it. I think that shows that the owners realize that they're getting screwed and they want to do something about it.
I love it. Yeah, I think I've definitely gone closer to your side, but I want to see what Connor has to say and if he's leaning on one side of the fence more than the other.
You say this like I don't have the most viewed clip on our channel, but regardless, here I'm picking a side because I absolutely and completely agree with what John said. To the all the way to the T of I think this would be more helpful for the league than having Messi in, at least in the long term. I mean, I think Messi is going to bring a lot of fans, and I would say probably there's going to be a chunk of them that stick around even after Messi's gone, but I really do feel like it's going to play a big role in the long run. All the stuff that John was saying, I think we'll be able to sell players better. Like they won't have to leave mid-season in terms of summer transfers. You're going to be able to bring in guys at a better time in the window. You won't have to bring someone in the mid-season and have your David Goss player of the year. I really do think it's going to be the long term right call. The one thing I will say is that I think it's going to take, first of all, it's definitely going to take some time to implement. I think it's going to be hard to kind of like fully make that switch and figure out everything logistically. And I also don't think it's going to be like this instant switch. Like as soon as we fix the calendar, we're going to see like Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe show up. But I think over time, it's going to play like a big factor in terms of improving our like stature in the transfer market.
Dude, I can't wait for the anti-MLS crowd on Twitter who is complaining about, oh, our schedule is backwards and it doesn't make sense. We need to be like the rest of the world. The very first season being like, none of this makes any sense. America messes everything up. Rah! Like, I can't wait for it. Hook it to my veins because you know it's coming. I am also in agreement with you. I think when we did our first iteration of this, we both were on the fence, Connor. I know I give you some dirt for it, but we both were on the fence. But I think we both were also leaning towards, in the long run, this is better than it wouldn't be. Right? We talked about how right now the calendar has issues, but it also has benefits. And if you were to switch it, essentially you're just switching your benefits and your issues to the other side. However, the feeling was that yeah, the when you switch the benefits, you're still going to come out net positive. The question was always just how much of a net positive. And I think you guys hit a lot of the good parts, right? The impact on transfers is huge, and it's one of the bigger things that we need to focus on. John, I think you hit it perfectly right. I mentioned the same thing. You need to overpay in the transfer market, or you're getting ripped off in the key parts of your moments in your season, and that sucks, right? Changing the schedule will allow you to play a bigger part in the global game and be a part of the window, which is great for fans of teams, though it may make the USMNT anti-MLS group cringe because they're not going to get to see their 18-year-olds play in the end of the season. But we move from there. I talked about the 27 out of the 30 teams. I think I don't remember the last time they voted on something with this much of an overwhelming majority, right? Usually it's like 20 out of 30 or 21. Like it's just barely over the majority. Here it seems like a huge push in the right direction. So it's more of a when, not when, but how it gets done. And that's where my focus is, right? So obviously everybody up north, including my friends up in New York over there, are always worried about the cold months, right? Oh, I'm not going to go out there in February and watch a game, right? Well, we already play in February. We also already play in December. Like this is not something that's completely out of the ordinary, and you are going to be able to see examples from other countries. Like Germany, for example, will take off for 6 weeks in the winter and be able to push that off. I also really, really like the idea of this now that we see what Leagues Cup has turned into, right? This little 1 week thing with a couple games at the end. I've got no problem making that a almost quasi MLS's back tournament, right? In the middle of that window, you've got 4 weeks off, then you go down to Florida, Texas, California, whatever, and you do it as a ramp up heading into the second part of the season. No problem with that at all, and I think that's actually really clever. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, John.
So for me, I think it's more important about when you play your playoffs. We're gonna have to play a lot of games regardless in the winter months. Okay, so a lot of that argument is moot. What's significant is when your playoffs are. I'd rather be playing our playoffs in April, May time and go up against, the MLB and the NBA than what happens in the fall where you see so many people just vacate MLS stadiums because they want to go watch their favorite football team. I see it here in Orlando. A lot of people want to go watch UCF, want to go watch the Gators, want to go watch, their favorite NFL team, and then the attendance drops. So it's better to do that early season. Yes, you're still going to have to compete, but we're going to have to compete now. So for me, it makes more sense to do that. I also think that the summer, you see a lot of fans just not coming because they're going on summer vacation. Here down south, it gets so hot that a lot of people just don't want to go to the stadium, similar like to in the winter where it's so cold that they don't want to go to the stadium. So I think you kind of can't win either way there. But the benefits that you get from aligning, like we talked with the transfers, and not only that, Andrew, another great benefit is the international windows and the fact that we won't have any more of this problem of MLS players only being available at certain times and other internationals being available other times. And I don't like the phrase, but no more camp cupcake will be a big, plus of this whole change.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting how the national team rotates around this as well. Like you mentioned with the January camp that won't quite exist anymore. But one of the things that's interesting to me is the idea of when people are coming, because I think one of the things that we talked about, and Connor, I'm going to get your thoughts on this in a second, was everybody loved the summer games because they were out of school and they could go without having to worry about working around school schedules and stuff. And you mentioned that it would be, people going on summer vacation or things like that. Connor, do you think that has an impact on attendance numbers, whether they play this schedule or the other schedule?
I mean, I think regardless of which schedule you have, you're going to have extremes in weather. I mean, New York. I mean, listen, I'm the last person in this call to be complaining about this, considering where both of you live. But New York has been brutally hot and humid this summer, and it's been disgusting, and I've hated every second of it. And I'll be honest, I don't think that that's any better. Like sitting in a game, if I'm sitting at a game and it's 95 degrees and it's 80% humidity outside, I really don't think that that's that much worse than sitting at a game where it's 20 and snowing. Like both of them are going to suck no matter what. But sure, your attendance numbers are probably going to go a little bit down in either of those situations. But like, if I'm being, and I'm totally biased in this, I'm 100%, I will admit up front, I'm biased in this. I would so much rather watch a snow game than a game that's played in 100 degrees. And I'm biased in this because I will never forget the Atlanta Minnesota game where we absolutely stomped on Minnesota. But the snow game was so much fun, and whenever we get a snow game, I feel like people get hyped for it. So I almost feel like maybe the winter would be a little bit more fun if we're going to go with one of the weather extremes. So I don't necessarily think that like that part of it is going to be an issue in terms of like summer vacations and that kind of thing. I mean, I feel like people will make time to come to games even if it's not necessarily like their summer vacation. Like if we flip the calendar, because like people will still go to watch the other sports. They'll go to watch the NFL. They'll go to watch the NBA. The games are on the weekends. I think people generally will, if they want to go, I think they'll be able to make the time to go, even if they don't necessarily have off from like school.
John, you see how down bad he is an Atlanta fan? He has to go all the way back to 2017 for good memories. How bad is that?
Wow.
And against 2017
let's go back to your last
Minnesota
MLS Cup.
too.
Let's go back to your last MLS Cup.
2017 Minnesota too.
I
How
was going to
sad is
say,
that?
Andrew, we don't, the guy's got an MLS Cup at least. He's got that. We don't.
Yeah, great. He won a 4-game tournament. I've got 3 shields, buddy. Yeah, call me when you can be the best.
You
team
mean
over
your dinner
34.
plate?
Yeah, call me when you're the best team over 34, buddy. So for me, this is a moot point, right? So experiencing games in brutally cold weather as a player in Alfred, which I'm not talking about like stadiums and stuff, but I've been in those games where I've been cold and uncomfortable. And then just this past June, I was sitting in Bank of America Stadium watching Bayern Benfica in 97 degrees. 97 degrees was significantly the worst thing I've ever been a part of. I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't enjoy the game. I barely could watch the game because all I was doing was taking my glasses off and wiping my face, putting them back on 2 seconds later, wiping my face. I then got stupid dehydrated. I saw 4 or 5 people get taken away in like golf carts because they had heat related illnesses because they weren't drinking properly. It was, and especially if you are packed into like I had the Bayern Munich supporter section from Germany who, I don't know if they flew in or if they're just local to Charlotte and they came to the game, who were dancing and singing and jumping and this whole thing, making all of this energy and noise that made it even more uncomfortable. It was, and that's what has changed my opinion on this, was finally experiencing it, because I was from New York for a long time and it was like, yeah, cold games suck and the heat can't be that bad. And then I experienced it for the first time, like, oh no, the heat is so much worse. It is draining. Like, you can put on more layers. You can get hand warmers. You can get things to make you comfortable. Air quotes comfortable, right? That's all relative. You cannot take off all of your clothes. You cannot just bring air conditioners into the state. You can't do it. You are stuck in uncomfort. Yeah.
I just had Leagues Cup last night, and it was 8 o'clock at night to start the game against Pumas, and it was still like 90 degrees out, 90% humidity. The sun was not out. You're just sitting outside, and it felt like it was the middle of the day. It was still that hot. So
Yeah.
I think, obviously I'm in the extreme down here in Florida, but we've seen, like Andrew's saying, and you're, all over, there's more and more of this heat coming all the way up the East Coast, especially, right? So this time of year, it could be 90 in New York. Like, that's pretty normal now. So I feel like there is a benefit to kind of moving to more winter across not even just the South, but some of the northern states as well.
I could tell you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week in New York, the average temperature was about a high of 95. So it gets super hot even
Bouncing
up
off that concrete up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrible. You'd be down in the subway. I think it's probably like at least 110 down there.
Yeah. Well, some of us use things called cars, Connor. We don't need to take subways.
Well, I'm a Euro snob, so I like
Yes,
my
you
public
are.
transportation.
There you go. One more question on this before we move on to our next topic, and it was something that kind of popped in my head as I was prepping this, and it's the idea that if you switched and you had all these people who decided they weren't going to go to games, you then are forcing them to go back home and watch it on TV. Now, the problem with being on TV is that it goes to Apple TV, and we've heard, and this is going to be our next topic, so it'll be a nice transition, but we've heard about the complaints from people who are fans of teams, not just people who go once or twice, but truly support the team, but who then don't watch at home because they don't want to pay for another subscription service or what have you, whatever their reasoning is. Do you think that a change in the schedule might help these numbers where it's early in the season and they say, oh, I'm not going to go to games, but I do want to see how the team is going to look. I'm going to actually buy this pass this year. Or will it hurt because it's so early in the season that they don't get the chance to hook them with a live game right from the start?
I think what you're gonna get, and I think this might also happen as well with like the actual tickets in the stadium. I think they're gonna try and sell like half seasons and things, and like just
Mm-hmm.
kind of be like, there's a lot of people that will join in later when they're like, the beginning of the year and they've got football season's over and they've got more time. But I know we're going to talk about Apple TV in a little bit, but for me, a lot of it is just to do with the price point. So they can change and add value and do as much as they want, but it's too expensive, in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll throw it to Connor first, and then I'll share my thoughts. But
Well, I'm gonna need you to keep me honest here if I'm going on too much of a stretch with this
and
one.
you know I will. You
I know
know I
you
will.
will. Yeah. I almost wonder if we're talking about somebody subscribing from the start of the season, if a schedule change might be a bit better then, because the way it's set up right now, I would think like probably around early February, you'd probably look to buy the subscription because that's around the start of the year. Like that's right after the holiday season where people are spending a lot of money and buying gifts for people for the holidays and whatnot. Maybe if you're talking about now you're starting your season in September, August, maybe people have a bit more money in their pocket. I mean, I haven't done the research on this of like, what times of the year people have the most money, but if they have a bit more money in their pocket, maybe they're more willing to spend on the subscription. That's kind of like the only thought process I have on that and like a possible change to it. Otherwise, I think I'm not too sure on opinion on the rest of it though. That's kind of the only thing that's coming to mind for me.
Interesting. I think this is another moot point. I think you're going to have half the people be upset about it, half the people will buy into it, and it's going to just kind of wash itself out. But I am interested on the idea of the price point because I think this is